This is Trish Thomas-Mink again, and I'm here to tell you about a profoundly sad story that I came across. It is called The Lost Children of the Empire, or The Forgotten Children. Now, from the 1940s, World War II, until about the 1970s, more than 10,000 British children were sent to Australia with promises of a better life. But once they got there, they were sent to orphanages and Catholic homes where they were beaten, raped, and psychologically abused. Actually, orphans and abandoned children had been being sent to Australia as unaccompanied minors since the 1800s. Both boys and girls, as young as 4 years old, were sent to the Commonwealth to train as farm workers, farmers, and farm wives, also to serve as breeding stock. The Find and Connect agency is one group that helps these children, who are now 40 to 60-year-old adults, find their British and Irish families. The agency states, British religious and benevolent institutions saw emigration as a means of creating opportunities for abandoned children, many of whom have been placed in institutions because they were illegitimate. To be categorized as an orphan was deemed preferable to that of being illegitimate. After World War II, the orphanages of Great Britain were full and overflowing with children, and Great Britain found it very difficult to care for them, I would say expensive. The children were promised vacations on a ship, with all kinds of treats, including kangaroos that would walk them to school if they went on vacation. They found themselves within weeks in Western Australia. Most were shipped there without their parents' consent or knowledge. Though there were orphans on this, there were also children that were in temporary custody while their parents got their lives back on track. When they showed up later for their children, they were told they were adopted out to a good family. So literally, some of the children were just taken. When they arrived in Australia, they were separated, brothers from sisters. They were deloused and stripped. They were given one set of clothing and a pair of shoes, and literally became slave labor. Then as adults, they were told the state had taken care of them, so they needed to pay them back. How does a 5-year-old boy create a debt for a pair of shoes, one outfit, maybe some food, while he worked every day, all day in the Australia sun? The Fair Bridge Society, the Catholic Church, the Church of England, and the Methodist Church played major roles in the post-war child migration to Western Australia. In 1947, the first post-war child immigrants were sent to Australia, most of them received by an organization called the Christian Brothers in Western Australia. Great Britain considered these children a burden on the state. Australia, on the other hand, considered these children the perfect immigrant. Because of their youth, they assimilated easily into society. One day, this is the story of one family. One summer day in Fremantle, Western Australia, a ship by the name of the SS Asturias, I'm going to spell that, Asturais, better than I can say it, came into port. The O'Rourke family arrived at their new life. They would be told that this was a new home and that their parents had been killed. There was Ellen, age 10. She was sent to an orphanage with her younger sisters, Hannah, 6, and 7-year-old Lil. The baby of the family, 5-year-old Michael, went to another orphanage, one run by the Christian Brothers. They never were really together again. Let me tell you what I learned about this organization, the Christian Brothers. It was Catholic, and they brutally took turns raping their boys, including 5-year-old Michael. Michael's worst tormentor enjoyed holding him naked upside down over a river while beating him. They did that so the water would drown out his cries. He told his social worker it was so easy to drown and accidents happened there all the time. Another enjoyed setting his dogs on him. Michael was so brutalized that as an adult he was institutionalized, unable to cope with the outside world, as late as 2009. These events began to change in 1986 when a social worker by the name of Margaret Humphries received a file of information from a woman that lived in Australia. She had come to Britain looking for her family. She said she had been sent alone on a ship to Australia at age 4. Now, Humphries at first assured the woman that that could never happen in Great Britain. It was against the law. But as Margaret began to research the case, she uncovered an enormous British program called Home Children. In 1987, she brought the story before the British public. She has since dedicated her time to helping the people now reaching middle age, they're 40 to 60 years old or older, with an organization called the Migrant Children's Trust. It helps reunite children with their families in Great Britain and in Ireland. I came across the movie Oranges and Sunshine, which chronicles Miss Humphries in aiding the lost children of the Empire. I watched the movie and the unfolding of the horrific tale for over tens of thousands of children. John Hennessy, who's 55, was a child migrant, and he says, "We were only children and we were betrayed and abandoned by the British government." Now, the children didn't just go to Australia. About 10,000 did. But they also went to Canada, South Africa, New Zealand, and other locations in the Commonwealth. Charlotte Cooper was the woman who approached Margaret Humphries. She was told that her parents were dead. Margaret found her mother Vera and reunited the two. It was the beginning of a passion for Humphries that helped start the Migrant Children's Fund and goes on to this very day. Since this time, Australia, the government, and the British government have apologized to the children. I don't know how you can truly make amends for those who have lost their families and their identities, their homelands. Many of these children even had their names changed. The stories are so profoundly sad. One story that brought me to tears was that of a boy who testified before a British parliamentary committee in the late 1990s. He spoke of a criminal abuse that he was subjected to at the hands of Catholic priests at Tardin in Western Australia. A number of Christian brothers competed between themselves to see who could rape him 100 times first. The boy said they liked his blue eyes. So the boy repeatedly beat himself in hopes that his eyes would change color. Another migrant child, Sandra Anker, was sent to Australia in 1950 at just age 6. She thought she was being sent to Africa as part of a wild adventure, but she ended up in Melbourne. She waited years for someone to realize they'd made a mistake and come and rescue her. She says she was deprived of a childhood and of a homeland. It took years and years of misery of not knowing where she'd come from, who they were, and being denied her birthright of being British. It was really horrendous, she said, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. We need to be welcomed back to our homeland. Neither the British nor the Australian governments will ever make up for the abuse inflicted on these children. Parliamentarians said the term sexual abuse was not strong enough for the severity of what happened to them. Australia called them the Forgotten Australians. This is a chapter where Britain could have done better. Australia could have done better, and now it is up to us to do better with children living in poverty and families that struggle every day to survive.